All right. I think it says we're live, so we should be live. I was thinking about the strategy of putting games everywhere while also selling a box and how it doesn't seem to be working when you look at the Xbox and the 30% year over year decline, sometimes quarter over quarter decline when it comes to the physical product that they're selling. And then, of course, it would make sense for you to find a way to offset those costs rather than just go out of business and stop making an Xbox console. So, what do you do? Well, after spending $80 billion in an afternoon, of course, you're going to have to find customers for those games. And a lot of those games that they purchased were always multi platform third party games. Everyone plays Call of Duty, everyone plays Elder Scrolls. They've never really been exclusive. So it makes sense that those games aren't going to be exclusive. Does it damage the brand a bit? I would say personally, probably not. But based on the reception and the sales of Xbox consoles, the obvious answer to that is absolutely yes. So, what do they do? And when you look at PlayStation and what they're doing, it seems like everything's going right. But every time I think about things, it does seem like some of the things that Microsoft and Xbox are doing would almost have to be inevitable when you talk about the high cost of what PlayStation, Sony, and Xbox, Microsoft are doing. So when you look at it, I say to myself, okay, they've got a box that costs money. They have all these studios, they cost money. They have these studios that are making these games. Obviously, that's another cost. Shipping those games, that's a cost. So, how do you mitigate all that cost? Well, you're going to have to make those games third party and you're going to have to go where consumers are spending. And that isn't Xbox, it's PlayStation. And I started to think about PlayStation as this island destination, right? This great place that you go to relax. They've got the nicest island. Maybe not the nicest, but everybody's there, so it must be the nicest. They've got the best drinks. They've got the best staff, the hottest women. And you're the destination, but the provider of all of the things that are exciting right now seem to be coming from Microsoft's side. Microsoft games are all the rage. They're all going third party. People are excited about purchasing them. Most of their first party games in the last, like I would say, month or 2 months that have been announced, they're more than PlayStation has announced almost all generations. So I get Ghost of Yotai is coming and I get Intergalactic is coming, but that's a lot of coming. Those are two really, really big high end AAA games. So how does Sony mitigate that cost? Well, they're going to sell a lot of PlayStation 5s. Maybe not enough to break even with the cost of those games at launch. Maybe they do. Then they've got PC. Are they going to do PC day and date? Probably. So they've got the PlayStation 5, highest number of consoles sold equals highest number of consumers to purchase games, to subscribe to services. Then they've got PC, a large number of people who may or may not purchase their games full price. They can mitigate cost that way. But that's really it for Sony. With Microsoft, they've got the PC, they've got PlayStation, they've got Switch, they've got the Game Pass monthly, whatever it pulls in a month. Let's just say $100 million a month. So they've got many more avenues to offset these costs associated with a console that isn't selling very well. Selling, but not selling very well. I think 30 million is the latest number. And I don't think that's a small number, but it's certainly not 70 million. It's certainly not on its way to being maybe um, the same sales as the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 5 may hit, 80 or 90 or even 100 million consoles sold. All of that is a great way to mitigate cost. But if you're still spending all of this money on IP to create them, you're going to have to find more and more ways to mitigate that cost. And I think day and date for Sony is a reality. But it's why I thought about this destination versus provider analogy. The island is the destination that you want to go to. And most people are choosing the island of PlayStation. They don't care if a game is a third party game there. They really don't care if it's a first party game there. They're just buying PlayStations. Everything is a PlayStation game, essentially. Grand Theft Auto, the association is with PlayStation. Tomb Raider, PlayStation. Final Fantasy, PlayStation. Devil May Cry, PlayStation. A lot of third-party games associate with PlayStation. That's smart on their end, doing that over the years, also buying themselves time to create really great first-party games, albeit not at a cadence that I think most people would want now. So, which is better? Is it better to be the provider or is it better to be the destination? That's rough because it's really sexy to be the destination. Everybody talks about the island of PlayStation, how wonderful it is. The weather is fantastic there. Have you seen the wait staff? They are incredible looking. Oh my God, the drinks are amazing. But then when you dig underneath of it, well, if 64% of the hot staff come from Microsoft, and if a large percentage of those great drinks are Microsoft drinks, and you start think about, okay, could this be a relationship that is more symbiotic than adversarial? And I think that's very possible too. I think that's what Microsoft's trying for. They've essentially failed. And I mean, let's be honest, right? The idea that the company that has failed at pretty much the traditional model in video games since the inception of the original Xbox, the idea that that's the company that is now telling everybody how the future is going to work for the industry is a bit of a precious take. So I don't want to go there. But I do think that it's smart to become the provider versus the destination. I know it isn't sexy. I know people want these Xbox consoles to sell really well. And I don't think that they're selling poorly. But when you get outsold by the Xbox One, that's not great. The generation that you shouldn't have lost. When you look back to the Xbox One, I mean, everything that they said is everything that we do now. They were just way too early, and the people messaging that idea were just clueless as to how to relate to people, normal people. So, I think about Game Pass. I think about the amount of money that they make every month in the subscribers, even if it's 20 million subscribers, which it's probably more. And even if they all pay $5, they pay more. But even if it's $5, right? That's 100 million a month towards offsetting the cost of doing what you're doing. Then you've got the game sales on PC. That goes towards mitigating the cost of everything that you're doing, creating games, creating consoles, if you're going to still do that, pay people, put the lights on. Then if you've got games on PlayStation that are going to sell reasonably well, based on the reception of people on social media, it seems like all these games are going to sell 1 million or more copies as soon as they release. Then you've got the Switch that you can sell games on, which you already are. So it seems like there's a lot of avenues. There's a lot of doors that are open to let cash come in to offset the cost of some of the things that aren't great at Microsoft with Xbox. And that's probably the console. When you looked at their financials, 2% growth, right? It would have been bigger if they weren't spending on creating that console. It's also why you see some regions, there's no Xbox footprint at all anymore because it costs money to ship those consoles there, and they're just not willing to do that anymore. So again, it's very possible that the provider that also has a destination may just become a provider, and that would, stink because I don't want to play my library of games on a PC. I don't want to do that. And I certainly don't think preserving my library is picking up my phone and attaching a controller to it and then signing in and saying, well, there's all my games. So they didn't screw me. I don't want that either. But it is interesting when you look at, just take something like Intergalactic, right? I think it's interesting that they said it during the 80s and you saw a lot of product placement, right? Think about the cost associated with putting your product in that game. Porsche was highlighted. I'm sure Porsche paid a bit of money to advertise in that game. That's a way of mitigating the cost of developing Intergalactic. Smart way to do it. But you can't develop every game with the idea of whose brand can we advertise in it so that we can drive down these costs. Intergalactic has to recoup its cost. It can only be sold on PlayStation and probably PC day and date, which makes a lot of sense. But that's it. Those are the only two ways that they can recoup costs. Now, maybe that's enough. Maybe having the destination that everyone wants and selling more and more consoles, and they're probably taking their time to try and get the PlayStation 5 numbers as high as they possibly can before they release Intergalactic or even Ghost of Yotai. But if those are the only two ways that you can mitigate cost, don't you think, and I could be wrong, but don't you think that they're going to have to find other ways to do that? Don't you feel that day and date might not be enough? Maybe games that are older, maybe the God of War trilogy 1, 2, and 3 ported to, say, a Nintendo Switch might make sense. Maybe games like Knack and Knack 2 ported to the Nintendo Switch might make sense, in the same way that a 4-year-old Forza Horizon game that essentially revolves around having players, and it did at launch, got great scores. It was an incredibly fun game, probably Microsoft and Xbox's best exclusive. But I struggle to get upset that they're taking something that is essentially flatlined and giving it new life on a system and with an audience that's never seen it before. Essentially, Forza Horizon is now a brand new release on the PlayStation 5. So yeah, it sort of makes the Xbox less of a destination, but they're the provider for that island that everybody wants to go to. So I don't know which one's better. Is it better to be the island, or is it better to be the provider? I'm not saying that PlayStation is just an island. They don't provide games either. You look at just released and just announced today, Kodakawa, they are now a strategic partner with that. And they're also going to distribute and produce all of their games going forward, which essentially means that all of Kodakawa's games are Sony first-party titles. So those games are associated with the island of PlayStation. Again, another way to bring in money. But all of those games will probably have to go to PC too, day and date, along with PlayStation 5. So essentially, I'm sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I get what Microsoft is doing. I struggle to find the negative in telling people, if you want to subscribe to a service, you can, to get all of these games that are $70. If you want to purchase these games, you can at a discount if you are subscribed to the service. If you want to stream these games anywhere, you can if you are subscribed to the service. Versus these games are going to PlayStation, give us $70. I struggle to find the negative there. But, and this is important, the market doesn't care about Game Pass, doesn't care about cloud saves going everywhere, doesn't care about streaming to different devices. They care about the island of PlayStation. That's what they care about. So ultimately, I feel like arguing about this stuff makes no sense because Microsoft has to do what they're doing. Nobody wants to get on the ride that is Xbox. They're all running to that ride called PlayStation because everyone loves it. The people that have been on that ride for several years tell everybody, you got to ride that ride. It's the best ride. And that's just a fact. They're Apple. Everyone buys Apple products, not because they keep iterating or because they're doing something new and fresh. It's because they've done the work in the past and now they're just riding that success. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing because it takes work to get there, right? It takes work to become that kind of brand. So I feel like, who am I arguing with at this point? Like Microsoft, even if Microsoft was selling 70 million consoles, do you really think a software and services company wouldn't try and turn something into recurring revenue every month? Everyone's doing it. PlayStation has a subscription service. Why is that not pointed out as being bad? Because games aren't there day and date. But God of War Ragnarok is there right now. So are a lot of other first-party games. They come later, worry. They don't come at launch. Okay, so we're arguing time. It just seems so pointless to try and figure out which strategy is better. When you look at, say, Microsoft in December made almost $1 billion. They were the number one games publisher in the world, the entire world. How is that a bad strategy? I get it. The island Xbox, nobody's going there. That's the negative. I get it. But maybe, tell me if I'm wrong, maybe finding ways to mitigate all of these costs and pull in all of this money, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe you can fund all of this stuff into perpetuity and it just doesn't matter. Whereas the other guy that has the island that everybody wants to go to has to find new creative ways to mitigate cost because they can't do what Microsoft and Xbox are doing. People would go bananas if something like Days Gone went to the Xbox. I don't know why, because the game is dead. It's not making any money. Why not take money from people on Xbox? Why not do that? Why not put Rise of Ronin, which is essentially dead, and it's a fantastic game. It is absolutely fantastic. Why not get money from somebody else? And I get it, PC is helping, but maybe it's not helping enough, and maybe it is. I don't know. I'm just saying that the high sum game of making huge AAA games. Hold on. I have to use a straw every time I drink now. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I just have to use a straw. It's weird. Maybe the constant push for newer, better, bigger, stronger, and the cost associated with that, eventually you're going to run off a cliff unless you start finding ways to pull in more cash from more places. And that's what Microsoft is doing because, you could say, because their island, the Xbox, isn't selling. Maybe that's true, but maybe even if they were selling 70 million Xboxes, maybe that's still not enough to recoup these costs. Maybe PC day and date is an inevitability, which it is. And maybe finding other players in other places is a reality. Now, do I think that eventually PlayStation will soften a bit and put some of their IP on an Xbox? No, but the reason isn't because they hate Xbox or because they're worried about their brand. It's because nobody really owns an Xbox. There's nothing to be gained by spending the amount of money it would take to port these games to the Xbox. There's just no return. I mean, why would you do it when you see your competitors flat quarter after quarter after quarter, 29%, 30%, 30%? I mean, at some point, it's like, why bother? And that's where I think people are apprehensive because, if you have an Xbox and you have a library and you just like the console, you're starting to think that it's going to go away. And that's a possibility. It absolutely is a possibility. I don't know anybody that can look at the numbers and see the decline year over year, quarter over quarter over quarter, and be confident that the next piece of hardware, this is going to be the one that does it. Now, I think it's more exciting because I know what the PlayStation 6 is going to be. So do you. The PlayStation 6 is going to be just like the PlayStation 5. It's going to be a traditional console. It's going to be super powerful. They're probably going to have maybe one or two exclusives at launch that show off the power like they did with the PlayStation 5 with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And it's going to follow that traditional model. And hopefully they migrate people to the PlayStation 6 faster than they have from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5. But that really doesn't matter either because it's still the same ecosystem. So money's coming in everywhere too. That's another thing to consider when I talk about the island versus the provider. PlayStation still has this other island called the PlayStation 4 out there that's making money. And then the PlayStation 5 and then the PlayStation 6. So that's something that can mitigate costs too. And maybe that's working for them. And maybe Microsoft's strategy of creating a console and being a provider everywhere is going to hurt the console to the point where they have to get out of hardware. And that would stink. That would suck. But what are you going to do? I've lived through this before. I was a huge Sega fan, and then they went away. So there's nothing I can do to alleviate that. I'm at 20% battery life. Whenever you start a stream, make sure that your fucking PC is charged. I don't plug this thing into the wall. So I don't even know how long I've been streaming. About 18 minutes. This is going to be a short one because I'm at 20%. So I don't know. I just thought provider versus destination, right? Xbox isn't a destination anymore. Microsoft made it that way. It's literally like this thing that floats around. Like nobody has a podcast dedicated to Netflix, right? Let's talk about Netflix versus Hulu. They fucking suck, man. Nobody does that. Why? Because it's a service. Nobody really cares, but they care about physical products. They want to touch. They want to feel. They want to taste. And Microsoft has said, we're not an island that you want to visit. But if you're on an island that's really cool, guess what? 64% of everything that you're doing is going to come from us. I can't argue that strategy. You can't argue it. You can't say it's terrible. You can say it's detrimental to the physical product. And it may be. It may be that more people are apprehensive to spend on digital purchases on the Xbox, which I would not do. I stopped doing that because I am afraid that the preservation that they're talking about is, hey, here's your catalog on your phone. Just sign into your Xbox app and there you go. There's all your games. Stream them or turn on your laptop, stream them. Or why don't you go out and buy a PC? I'm never going to do any of that stuff. I want a console and I want my games that I purchase to be on that console. I think PlayStation is the safer bet right now. I don't know, but I just thought it was interesting. Island versus destination. I thought it was clever. I did. So let me know what you think. Do you think it's better to be the provider of everything and also kind of doing your own thing like they do with Surface? I don't know anybody that owns a Surface. Interestingly enough, the new Surfaces aren't even sold to consumers in stores. You have to be a business to purchase them. And I'm hearing rumblings that that's the model for the new Xbox. You go to Xbox's site to order the next Xbox or whatever third-party manufacturer is making and calling an Xbox, you'll go there to purchase it versus Amazon, which I don't know. That's insane to me. So who knows? But I do feel like I get it. I get the comfort zone of the island that you're used to going to, and they just make you feel great. And every once in a while, it takes a while, but that island comes out with their own thing, and it's usually technically much better than anybody else's things. It's just that when Microsoft keeps pumping out these games, one after the other, after the other, after the other, even if they're not as big and grandiose and technically impressive as something like Intergalactic, it still has a net effect on people. They still want to either play those games or get the value of Game Pass, which, again, Microsoft isn't communicating well at all. Ultimately, I don't think most people care about Game Pass. I don't think most people care about Xboxes. I certainly don't think most people care about cloud streaming. Maybe some people care about cross saves and migrating your save files to PC from your toilet seat. But it does seem like the island of PlayStation is where everyone wants to go when they're on vacation. And they don't care that the stuff that's there comes from Microsoft or comes from EA or comes from Capcom or comes from anybody else. They just want to be there and experience all that there. That's the problem Microsoft has going forward. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is about a 22-minute live stream because my PC is about to, I can't believe I called it a PC. I'm so sorry. My MacBook. This is not a PC. It's a MacBook. I can't believe I said that. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. It's not that big a deal. If I were you, I would not spend digitally. I wouldn't add to my digital library on Xbox. I would be careful. And maybe the next Xbox is open source. Maybe it's huge. Maybe Steam allows their store there. Why wouldn't they? You've got 200 and something million console owners who never touch a PC, never go into the Steam store. So why not give them access to the store, take a cut? Maybe that's profound enough to put Xbox back in this sort of bubble where people are like, I'm going to check that out. Or maybe the PS6 is just a monster. And they have compelling software that you can't get anywhere else. And I know that's an old way to think, but I'm old and it still has its sway. Island versus provider. Which one would you want to be? The island of PlayStation versus the provider of Xbox. Thanks for watching the stream. 4 people here. Sorry, I had to cut it off at the 22-minute mark. 18% battery life. I mean, I really have to get professional, don't I? Look at the camera. It's fucking horrible. It's fucking horrible. Listen, you can go and get these fancy presentations before the podcast and this, the stuff popping up on the screen and just all this amazing production value, or you can come here. I know which one I do. I go to the place with the huge production value. Oh, well. Thanks for coming in. 4 people. Nobody left a comment. I don't know if the comments are working. I have no idea. I just assume that they are. And I assume that the 4 people watching would ask a question, but you don't have to. That's fine. I get it. All this might be a little bit, starstruck. It's okay. I understand. And I know how to invite people now. So hopefully I can link the, what do they call it? I can link the link. I forgot what it was called. It's called a link. Fuck. I could link the link to wherever you are. So that's it. Xbox provider, PlayStation destination. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? Truth Serum says I was right. Listen, don't get in an accident. I was just talking, trying to make myself feel better. It's kind of rough when you're a tiny, tiny, tiny little YouTuber, but a large, beautiful man. It's a juxtaposition that is hard. Kind of like Microsoft. Huge, huge company with a really, really tiny presence in the console space. So, Truth Serum, thanks for stopping by. The other 3 people, thank you for stopping by. I know it's a short stream. I probably didn't link it anywhere. What are you going to do? But that's my take. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Which console do you think comes out on top in the end? Not this generation. Obviously, it's PlayStation 5. But which strategy do you think wins based on what's happening right now? Probably PlayStation, I would say. But you never know. So let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. And I will see you all in the next one, which I promise is going to be longer than 26 minutes.